From pop culture to politics, this is the Michael Medved Show.
And another great day, another great week, in fact, in this greatest nation on God's green earth. It is 60 days since the U.S. and Iran signed a memorandum of understanding that called for a wider peace deal to be negotiated within that 60 days. Is there any peace deal on the table? Anything going on? Not really. After multiple flare-ups and suggestions of an imminent accord, we're right on the verge, days away, hours away, but it hasn't happened. There do not appear to be any concrete plans to end the 24-week war, at least not concrete plans from the United States, but for the Republic of Iran, the Islamic Republic of Iran, they have plans. A bombshell, says a Mediaite report, reveals that Iran's secret plan is to expand the war with Trump. They say the main war has not yet begun. The Wall Street Journal first published the bombshell report detailing how, behind the scenes, Iranian hardliners dug in this summer to prepare to escalate the war with the U.S. amid negotiations to resolve the conflict, which they viewed simply as an irrelevant delaying tactic by the Trump administration. The report in the Wall Street Journal and then passed on by Mediaite is titled Iran's Secret Plan to Escalate the War. It's based on intercepted communications between Iran and its proxies in the Middle East, which raised alarm within Arab intelligence agencies in the region. The Sunday Evening report last night dropped just hours before Trump threatened more strikes on Iran as the current memorandum of understanding is set to expire. The report details how, after Trump signed the memorandum of understanding in mid-June, to take steps to resolve the conflict, Iran's hardline leaders huddled in Tehran and came up with a different plan. That, according to Iranian and Arab officials, in their view, the pact was likely just an attempt by the U.S. to take pressure off the global economy and buy time for a bigger attack down the road. Instead of putting faith in talks, the Iranians took the past 2 months to prepare for a bigger fight, continued the report before detailing the steps that Iran took to widen the conflict. And today, President Trump threatened to bomb Oman, one of our allies in the region, if the country gets in the way of U.S. efforts to reopen the Strait of Hormuz and end the war with Iran. That all according to Fox News. Earlier, Iran's foreign minister, spokesman for the foreign ministry, said Tehran had reached an agreement with Oman regarding future shipping routes in the strait. And meanwhile, Jared Kushner is trying to negotiate, well, something. He met Monday, today, with the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, who was facing a crucial election in October. He met with Netanyahu a day after holding talks with Hamas leaders in Egypt to discuss the latest U.S.-backed peace proposal for the Gaza Strip. Netanyahu rejected the U.S.-backed proposal last week. So with all of this going on, the attempts to negotiate a deal in the Gaza Strip, when the United States is not directly involved in the Gaza Strip, we are very much directly involved and suffering from the ongoing war with Iran. We are making no progress and no real effort to settle that. Meanwhile, because partially the election is looming, the midterm election, which could cost Republicans control of the House of Representatives and or the Senate, or possibly both of them. The new Democratic line is being put forward with great aplomb by Jon Ossoff, who is the incumbent Democratic senator in in Georgia, who spoke over the weekend in Atlanta in a speech that mobilized his forces and outraged Republicans. Senator Ossoff, who is now looks like he is ahead of the Republican candidate, a member of the House named Mike Collins. But Jon Ossoff sounded like this. This is clip 18.
And while the sailors on the Lincoln fight his war, while he fruitlessly drains our munitions and oil reserves, the president sleeps through his meetings. He golfs and trades stocks. See, he doesn't want to do the job. He wants to build his ballroom and travel with Natalie on their apparently defenseless flying palace gifted by the Emir of Qatar.
Okay, the idea that he wants to travel with Natalie, that is a reference to Natalie Hart, the presidential aide who does travel with him under every circumstance. This has actually gotten people on the left and people on the Democratic side of things very excited, because what is very obvious by Ossoff's speech and his rally, which was a big success, is that he was aiming his fire directly at President Trump, not at his opponent for the U.S. Senate. And the idea being President Trump is deeply unpopular. And why? Well, Jon Ossoff gives some of the reasons why in that same rally speech, clip 20.
Okay, so follow me through on this. He announces the tariffs on April 2nd of last year. The markets tank nonstop for like a week because it's a disastrous trade policy. And 6 days into the crash, April 8th, Trump buys millions in stock. I'm talking Amazon, Nvidia, Apple, Microsoft, Berkshire Hathaway. And then the very next morning, April 9th, he posts on Truth Social, quote, "This is a great time to buy." 3 exclamation marks. Okay, now listen to this. 3 hours and 41 minutes after that post, 1 day after he bought millions in stock, he canceled the tariffs and triggered one of the biggest same-day rebound rallies in market history. He's trying to get money. And you saw now he's offering paid subscriptions to presidential announcements, right? Just understand what's for sale here. The sitting president's pronouncements on war and peace and economic policy delivered first to paying customers? What an absolute crook.
An absolute crook, and lusty cheers for the Democrats who gathered in Atlanta. There's more, and talk about Jon Ossoff as a potential presidential candidate, assuming that he wins his election for re-election to the U.S. Senate this year. Actually, it's now less than 3 months from now. It's coming up in November. Meanwhile, there is also a stunning interchange with the newly confirmed Attorney General of the United States, who says he is not independent of the president. In other words, could he be just a lackey for President Trump? Well, we'll get to that and that exchange coming up on the Medved Show. And people who follow Washington are very aware of the fact that Todd Blanche, who used to be the president's personal attorney, private attorney, to handle some of President Trump's many, many, many legal problems and actual indictments and judgments against him, which have news breaking on that front too. We'll get to it. But Todd Blanche got confirmed as Attorney General of the United States, the top law enforcement officer in the land, he got confirmed by the narrowest possible margin. There was a tie in the Senate vote, and the tie was able to be broken by J.D. Vance, the vice president. In any event, the newly confirmed Attorney General went on Meet the Press, where he faced questioning by Kristen Welker. And she asked him about his pledge that he would always protect the Constitution and law enforcement, regardless of what it is that President Trump wanted. President Trump used to be his boss when he was a private attorney, but now that he was Attorney General, he was independent and following his own conscience and the constitutional dictates surrounding his job. Well, how then could he support the president basically endorsing and praising and attempting to fully pardon and reward, in fact, the demonstrators of January 6th, the people who stormed the Capitol building? This is the exchange on Meet the Press yesterday with Kristen Welker of NBC.
Mr. Attorney General, on President Trump's first day in office, as you know, he pardoned everyone who attacked the Capitol on January 6th, including 172 people who pleaded guilty to assaulting police officers. How is that consistent with your pledge to always protect law enforcement?
There's nothing inconsistent about that. The president's pardon powers, any president's pardon powers, are not limited. So when I say, and when this Department of Justice says, and when the FBI says, like we're saying, then every U.S. attorney is saying that if you assault law enforcement, we will prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law. That is absolutely what President Trump expects. Absolutely what I expect of our prosecutors, and that's completely separate from any president's ability to pardon.
But he did the opposite of that effectively. I mean, on January 6th, police officers were beaten with baseball bats and flagpoles. Do you believe it was wrong to pardon the people who assaulted police officers on January 6th, given that you have vowed to protect law enforcement?
It's a reasonable question, is it not? And then his answer, no, I'm not opining or in any way saying that what President Trump did was wrong. Absolutely not. So does that mean what he is saying is that what President Trump did was right? That the question is a phenomenally powerful one, which is you say you're going to protect law enforcement, but then you refuse to disagree with the president or to stand up to him in any way when he pardons people who beat and assaulted and in some cases profoundly injured the members of law enforcement who were trying to protect the Capitol building in the United States. Joe Scarborough on NBC had his own reaction to the Todd Blanche interview with Kristen Welker concerning those January 6th pardons. Here is Joe Scarborough, clip 23.
The message that you're sending and the president you're working with is beat the hell out of cops. Have their families say that led to their deaths. Spend an entire day where cops are targeted, beaten, brutalized, choked, tased, shot with bear spray, and then they're going to get off scot-free? Come on, Todd. You know that's just bull. You know what happens when you tell cop beaters that they're going to get away with it? I mean, what you're doing is you're sending a message not just to cops that you're not going to back up. You're sending a message to criminals. You're sending a message to the bad guys that there is no such thing as law and order with this White House. There is no such thing of taking care of cops if somehow that gets in the way of your own political ambitions. There is no justice for cop beaters. There is no consequence to those actions.
And that, it seems to me, is an unanswerable indictment. By the way, speaking of unanswerable indictments, there is another news from the Supreme Court of the United States. They had been asked to reconsider the $5.3 million that President Trump had been ordered by previous judicial forces. The Supreme Court has dealt President Donald Trump, reports Mediaite, another loss in his quest to throw out a 2023 verdict that found that the president sexually abused writer E. Jean Carroll in the 1990s and then defamed her. After the ruling tamed down, Trump ranted on Truth Social, "This case is really against the United States of America and all it stands for." What? He's found liable for sexual assault in the dressing room of a department store. And this case is against the United States and all it stands for? The United States stands for the right to assault women in a department store dressing room, and then to defame them afterward, and then to try to dodge the loss of the case against you, which has required that you first pay $5.3 million and then $83.3 million more for defamation. The President of the United States says on his Truth Social, "This case is really against the United States of America and all it stands for, and should never be allowed to happen to another president or candidate to be." New York State created a law for the instant speck of time going back many decades in order to wrongfully nab me. It was tailor-made, and this injustice cannot be allowed to stand. Separately, the president is still on the hook, writes Mediaite, for the $83.3 million defamation verdict after Trump attacked Carroll repeatedly, including on social media.
The Michael Medved Show.
Listen.
Nationwide.
Listen.
And around the world at michaelmedved.com.
And listen.
And on the Michael Medved Show, there is a great deal of excitement on the Democratic side of things as we approach the midterm elections. And one of the featured races in the midterm elections is the race for re-election by Jon Ossoff, who is completing his first term in the U.S. Senate. He is articulate. He is a good speaker, very solid, and he has attracted a tremendous amount of enthusiasm on the part of Democrats who are looking for someone to replace the likes of Graham Plattner. Remember him? He's now history. But as they report in Mediaite, Senator Jon Ossoff, Democrat, Georgia, turned the spotlight on President Donald Trump and his relationship with longtime aide Natalie Harp on Sunday at a rally in Atlanta. He accused the president of preferring to travel with Natalie rather than do his job. And part of that goes to a decision that he made at one point, the president, to include Natalie on a plane in which the Secretary of State was ignored. The Democrat, that would be Jon Ossoff, who was seeking another term in the Senate, invoked Harp, one of Trump's closest personal aides, during a rally where he criticized the president over the length of deployments faced by sailors serving aboard the U.S. aircraft carriers this year. While the sailors on the Lincoln fight his war, while he fruitlessly drains our munitions and oil reserves, the president sleeps through his meetings. He golfs and trades stocks. So he doesn't want to do the job. He wants to build the ballroom and travel with Natalie. Okay, these are tough words. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent were left behind during the switch, along with members of the White House press pool. This is when he had to switch planes because he was fearing an Iranian attack on the plane that he had just gotten from the government of Qatar. And Ossoff's remarks came after Harp's estranged brother, that's Natalie Harp's estranged brother, whose name is Preston Harp, told the New York Times that his sister's relationship with President Trump was, quote, very unhealthy, and claimed that her devotion to the president extended to leaving him admiring personal notes. One of those personal notes that has been publicized said from Natalie Harp to President Trump, "You are all that matters to me." I'm sure there are other people who don't know President Trump that well who feel the same way. And when Ossoff was speaking at that rally in Atlanta, he also blamed Trump's obsession with Fulton County. He blamed that obsession concerning black voters and his remarks about them, who orchestrated his defeat in Georgia back in 2020. This is John Ossoff, clip 19.
And at that Savannah breakfast last week, Mike told Mr. Box he wants to pay those violent criminals with your tax dollars. They tried to seize the presidency. And here we are in Fulton County, where the president sent his spies and his agents to seize your ballots. And why Georgia? Why this obsession with Fulton County? It's the same reason he's obsessed with Philly. It's the same reason he's obsessed with Detroit. It's because the fact that black voters were instrumental to his defeat offends him even more than the defeat itself.
And then what about President Trump's promise that he would lower prices? His first day as the new president. This again, Senator John Ossoff, clip 75.
He promised to lower prices on day one. You remember that? And I want the president's remaining supporters to hear this, because it was all a lie. Under Donald J. Trump, it costs more than ever to stock your fridge, to power your home, to make a cup of coffee, to buy school supplies for your kid or a tractor for your farm. Gas is up 30% since inauguration. Diesel, 47%, coffee, 35%, ground beef, 23%. They doubled your health insurance premiums and slashed Medicaid to cut taxes for their corporate donors and the ultra-rich. They made you pay more for everything and took us to war on lies and spent most of last year trying to cover up for the world's most famous pedophile while the crook president and his crook family raked in billions.
The crook president and his crook family raked in billions? And what about Trump's pursuit of vengeance on his political enemies? Clip 76.
Our government made a tool of one man's vengeance, power, and wealth. Prices soar while the president rakes in billions. Cancer patients lose insurance while the rich get another tax cut. We're plunged deeper and deeper into another reckless war. Private prisons full of families grow in size and squalor. The Justice Department and even our intelligence agencies are twisted to serve this president's vendettas. But in 8 weeks, Atlanta, in 8 weeks, we can cast our ballots and say enough is enough. In 8 weeks, we will vote to rebuke him so decisively that no president will dare such abuses again for centuries. Atlanta.
Okay. And then what about the Iran war? Yes, John Ossoff also had some strong comments on that conflict. Clip 77.
Promised peace and gave us war. Now in its 6 months, they drained our stockpiles to achieve nothing. Iran still has its uranium. Hormuz is still closed, and it was all lies. 18 brave Americans killed in action. Remember last year they claimed Iran's nuclear program had been obliterated? Then this year they claimed it posed an imminent nuclear threat? Both times lies. On day one of the war, listen to this, day one, the president said the war was, quote, ahead of schedule. Ahead of schedule. On day 4, he declared victory. Today is day 170. Listen to this. On day 9 of the war, the incompetent Pete Hegseth guaranteed Iranian surrender.
Okay, and what happened with that Iranian surrender? They seem to be convinced that they are winning the war and will continue to expand it. More about the powerful conclusion by John Ossoff and more coming up on the Medved Show. And what about Mike Collins, the Republican nominee for U.S. Senate to challenge John Ossoff? Ossoff has been running strongly, and again, because Georgia is basically a Republican state. And he won narrowly last time, his first race for the Senate. This time, he may do better, and he may emerge, as many people have commented, as a real presidential possibility. Part of what the American people seem to want, and it's indicated by all of the polling, is they want somebody new, somebody different, some different approach than what we are getting from the Trump administration and his key aides and his key associates, including, of course, Pete Hegseth, who is particularly controversial among people on the other side politically, and including many Republicans as well. The self-described Secretary of War is one of those people who doesn't seem to be in line with President Trump's promise to keep us out of foreign wars. Before his conclusion in his rally speech in Atlanta last night, Senator John Ossoff, Democrat of Georgia, took a few rips at Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War. Clip 82.
Listen to this. On day 9 of the war, the incompetent Pete Hegseth guaranteed Iranian surrender. On day 14, he claimed Iran's military had been destroyed. On day 40, he said every single objective had been achieved. That was 4 months ago. They've lied nonstop about this war like they lie about everything. And they know they're lying, but they lie and they keep lying anyway because in this White House, they view persistence in deceit as a virtue. You hear me, Atlanta? And there's something uniquely despicable about lying a nation into war. Treating citizens as fools and those who serve as pawns.
Okay, that is remarkably sharp and directed at the real weaknesses of the Trump campaign. And this speech, which I think does raise the national profile and influence of Senator Jon Ossoff had a particularly effective conclusion that may be studied in the future for its skill and impact. Of course, that all depends on Ossoff winning his campaign and going on to another term in the U.S. Senate. But here was the conclusion of his speech in Atlanta, clip 79.
Tech titans dig bunkers and warn us the new intelligence they're training could lead to mass joblessness or human extinction, and our Congress debates ballrooms and youth sports. We've amassed enough firepower to end the world 1,000 times over, but we can't summon the will to guarantee health care and pre-K. I say all this to say that it's the crushing weakness of our politics against the unmet needs of our people and the massive stakes of our times that's shaking our faith in the future. But Atlanta, I refuse to leave my girls a world as dark and dangerous and cruel as this one threatens to become. And a wave is building. The kind of wave that comes once a generation when the people have been pushed too far. And they decide all together, all at once, to say what? Enough is enough. The polls open in 8 weeks, Atlanta. 8 weeks. Atlanta, are you ready to work? Atlanta, are you ready to win?
And he goes on, a very effective bit of politics. Not so effective, we were playing you some of the interchange between Kristen Welker of Meet the Press and the new Attorney General, Todd Blanche, former personal lawyer to Donald Trump. And she continued to press Attorney General Blanche on his silence about Trump's pardon to more than 1,000 people who had been found guilty or pleaded guilty for their riot that they staged at the Capitol building in January 6th of 2021. And here is what that exchange sounded like from Kristen Welker and Todd Blanche, the Attorney General. 24.
Every attorney general vows to protect law enforcement, including me. And so, no, I'm not opining or in any way saying what President Trump did is wrong. Absolutely not. By the way.
Isn't it inconsistent with what you said, though? Is
absolutely
it inconsistent
not. There's
with
a
your
difference.
Pledge?
No, there's a difference between saying we will prosecute anybody. If later a president chooses to pardon that individual, that is the president's right under our Constitution. Do not forget that a few days before President Trump pardoned the individuals associated and who had pled guilty to the conduct on January 6th, President Biden pardoned hundreds and hundreds of criminals, many of whom were quite violent. So that's his right to do that, just like it's President Trump's right to do that.
But what message does it send to police officers that people who assaulted them were pardoned?
The message to police officers is consistent and same every single day, which is that we will protect you.
Okay, really? And then Todd Blanche goes on about acting independently of the White House. Clip 21.
You, of course, used to be President Trump's former personal defense attorney. Can you pledge that the Justice Department will always act independently of the White House?
Well, there's a big difference between saying we will always do our job and investigate any case and act independently of the White House. No, I'm not going to pledge that. And no attorney general should ever pledge that. The president, I mean, if I were to pledge I will be independent of the White House, what that means is that if President Trump says, I want the Department of Justice to go after every violent criminal in this country, which is what he has said, what you're saying to me is I just say, no, sir, I'm not going to do it. So I will act with integrity. Our prosecutors will act with integrity. We will prosecute without fear or any sort of favor. And that's exactly what we've been doing. And that's what every Department of Justice should do.
Okay, the idea that they are going forward without any fear or favor or political edge to their prosecutions, it's so very obvious that if people had been involved with, say, Antifa and they had attacked police officers. By the way, there are not many cases of that. There are a few, but there's no mass case of Antifa or any left-wing group attacking cops, and attacking cops en masse, and attacking the seat of the nation's power. Just hasn't happened. People were chanting, "Hang Mike Pence." You remember that? And to turn on that and say that the fact that we said nothing to even question the mass pardons of rioters, of insurrectionists, of people who flew the Confederate flag and used the Confederate flag at some of the flagpoles to beat police officers. That does not go with the idea of independence and integrity for the nation's leading law enforcement officer. Coming up, we will be talking to a commentator who says that right now the GOP is following an error of the Democrats, and an error that may kill Republican chances when the election's coming up. We'll be talking about what that alleged mistake is and what Republicans can do to avoid it coming up. And there's something more that Todd Blanche said that President Trump would never ask him to do. What could that be? That and more, with more threats from our Iranian enemies as well. That all coming up in This Greatest Nation and for this greatest nation on God's green earth.